Today we're going to talk about graphing linear inequalities. And what I need for you to do is have your workbook and I'll tell you which page numbers to be on, and you'll just follow what I do. If I go fast, pause the video, and then take your time, write down what you need to, make sure it's going in your brain before it goes through your paper. On page 158, we have three early examples. So I'm going to use this to kind of give you notes before we actually do the notes. All right, so we're going to start with the first one, A here. And you already know how to graph in y equals mx plus b. You already know how to graph this because we did that last week. So what you want to do is start with 5. So we're going to go up to 5 and plot a point on the y-axis, remember. And then the slope is going to be 1. So that's going to be like 1 over 1. So that's up 1, right 1. That, again, is nothing new. You've done that before. The new part is looking at this greater than. All the graphs that we've done before have been equal to, and that means I'm just going to draw a line and it's equal to that line. Now we're saying, no, we want everything that is greater than that line. So what we have to do is first choose between a dotted or a solid line. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that this one is dotted. So when I graph it, it's going to look something like this. And then greater than usually means it's going to be above the line. So it would be like up in here. So all of this area is your solution. Okay, so like, and what that means is that if I were to pick, let's say, this point right here. So that's the point, -2, 5. If I were to take -2, 5 and plug it into that equation, it would be true. Now, on the other hand, if I picked something down here that's not shaded, like 1, 3, if I plugged 1, 3 in that function, it would not be true. Okay, so we only want to shade the parts that are true. All right, let's see, so let's do the next one pretty quickly. Now that you kind of got it, we're going to start with the y-intercept at 1, and this is a -1 over 2. So we're going to go down 1, right 2. And then this one is actually going to be a solid. Oops. Let me take that line off there. Hold on. This is going to be a solid line. Okay, so now I want you to see, before I tell you, I want you to see if you can figure out why A was dotted and B was solid. Think about that for a second. Okay, what it has to do with is this sign having an equal sign on it. So if you have greater than or less than only, it'll be dotted. But if you have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, that's a solid line. Okay, what that means is that everything on that line is also part of your answer. And we'll kind of look at that as we go. All right, so this says y less than. So for right now, I'm just going to show you that less than means underneath the graph. Okay, so again, any point that you pick in this bottom section will be true for this function. All right, let's try one more. This would be for C. Let's see, we're going to start at -5. So we'll go down here to -5. And then my slope is -1 over 1. So I'm going to go down 1, right 1. This time, because of what we just learned, because of the equal sign, it's actually going to be a solid line. And I want to extend it as far as I can. And it says y greater than. So greater than to me means above the. Okay, now that you've seen an example of kind of what we're doing, let's go through and make sure our notes are right. This is on page 159. And this I already kind of talked to you about, but I would ask you to either highlight or circle this portion right here. So the dashed line is for a less than or greater than only. A solid line, see another color. A solid line is going to be with the equal to on the end. Okay, now when I did my examples, I didn't have you test a point like this says, but I think from now on in the examples that we use, I will have you test a point because that's probably how they're going to ask you to do it on the FSA. But at least you know greater than means above, less than means below. And I'll show you what testing a point means here in just a second. Okay, well, here's that second. On page 160, we're going to look at what it means to test a point. So what this question is saying is here's a function, and they have an x and a y that they want you to see if it's true or not on this function. So is it one of the points that falls in that shaded region? So what we're going to do is plug in 3 for x and then 2 for y. And we're asking the questions. I'm going to put this in a yellow so you can see that we don't know if that's true or not. We're actually asking, is this true? So if it says 3 plus 2, 3 plus 2 is 5. So the question is 5 greater than 5? Well, that would be no, because it would have to say 5 greater than or equal to 5 in order for that to be true. Now what I would like for you to do is pause the video, try questions 2 and 3, and then play the video when you're done with that. So pause the video now, please. Okay, hopefully this is what you got here. You should have 5 minus 3 greater than or equal to 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 greater than or equal to 2 is yes. Here you would have negative 1 plus 2 times 2. I'm doing this kind of fast because you should have already done it. Again, if you have questions, you know what to do in that case is raise your hand and make sure to ask. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3. So the question is 3 less than or equal to 4? 3 is less than 4, so that is also a yes. Okay, the next thing we're going to learn how to do is when I have functions that are x or y equals. So these are horizontal or vertical lines. This y equals here is a horizontal line. And I think most of you probably know that already. But the way that we graph that is we go on the y-axis. We're going to go to where 4 is. But we're going to draw in a horizontal line. Now keep in mind that this sign is a less than only. So it will be a dotted line, and it says y less than that, so we're going to shade up under. So basically everything up under this horizontal line at 4 is going to be a solution. Okay, for the next one, this is what x equals is a vertical line. And what we do is we go along the x-axis. See how this is x-axis? And we're going to go to 3. And this one again is going to be a vertical dotted line because it's greater than. And greater than is going to be shaded to the right. So this is what this graph will look like. Again, I'd like you to pause the video and then practice 8 and 10. Start the video only when you have tried it first. Okay, this is going to be at negative 1. We're going to have a horizontal line, and we know that it's on the y-axis. So we find the negative 1 on the y-axis, horizontal line, and this is a y greater than. So everything above the graph would be shaded. All right, and number 10 is on the x-axis. We're going to go to negative 1, and we're going to have a solid line this time. We're going to pay very close attention to the solid versus the dotted. And this is going to be x less than or equal to. So less than negative 1 would be everything this way. Okay, we've just went full circle. This is what the lesson actually wants you to do, is to be able to graph one of these guys. So if we go back to our steps that we had earlier on page 159, it said that we're going to start by graphing the function. So we're going to do that. We go up to 1, and then we have a slope of positive 3 over 1. And then this is going to be a dotted line. That was step 1 to say whether it was dotted or solid. Now step 2 said to test a point. So what we want to do is just pick any point on this graph. So I'm going to choose this 0. I like to choose 0, 0 when I can. And what we're trying to do is just decide, are we going to have are we going to shade above the graph or below the graph? Now, since it says y less than, I kind of assume it's going to be underneath the graph over here. But let's say I don't know that. What this lesson is going to want you to do is to plug in a point. So, like I said, I like to pick 0, 0 because that is kind of an easy one to plug in. So if I plug that into function, I would have 0 less than 3 times 0 plus 1. So the question is 0 less than 1? Yes, that is true. So that's true, I'm going to shade where it covers the part that's true. So it's going to be everything underneath the graph. So again, it kind of follows that if this is a less than sign, then you would shade below. Sometimes it's hard to see. So anyway, testing a point is your second step. All right, nice job. I hope you were able to stop and go back. You can always take this and come back and look at it any other time you want to, especially if we're getting you ready for the FSA, and let's say you forgot something. Always use these videos. Right now, what I want you to do is on page 160. I want you to try the ones that are below. This is your first independent practice. When you're finished with that, you will need to bring it to me so that I can go through everything with you and see how it looks. Thank you for paying attention.